I forgot to bring her for it. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Ooh. My name is Dr. Margaret Tangle. I am the Associate Dean for Inclusive Excellence here at the Larner College of Medicine. And I'm very, very excited to welcome you all this evening in person and online to our 12th annual, oh wow, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Health Equity Lecture. This lecture was created in 2014 to really inspire our community to engage in dialogue, community engagement, and civic education around topics of inequity and inequality in medicine and their relationships to the vast health disparities we see in our society. Thanks to the generous support of the Dean of the Larner College of Medicine and our Larner alumni, the lecture, now in its second decade, has grown tremendously, and we are pleased that members of both our university and local communities participate each year. This lectureship was started during the tenure of Dean Warren, and Dean Page has continued to support us, and I cannot say enough of how much we appreciate that support. Each year, we have sought speakers that include scholars and thought leaders whose leadership and scholarship, perspective, and viewpoints enhance our understanding and appreciation for inclusive excellence. As we celebrate the life and work of Dr. King, we can also reflect on how his commitment to ending injustice, especially in these times, can also apply to the work of eliminating health disparities within populations around the world. Before we get started, though, I do have a few housekeeping items. For those viewing online, we have a live captioning link that is available in the chat. The lecture is also CMIE accredited this year, so you can scan the QR code above, on the slide, the next slide. Maybe I have to show. Oh, what did I do? That's why they can't leave me by myself. So there's the QRS code for evaluation and also to get the credit. These links will be added to the online chat as well. Lastly, our speakers and reviewers have no significant financial relationships to disclose. And now I would like to introduce our Dean of the Larner College of Medicine, Dean Page. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Dean Tando, and it's really my pleasure to greet all of you this evening. I want to start with a quote. Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and inhuman because it often results in physical death. These words are attributed to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, made at a Chicago press conference held on March 25th, 1966, in connection with the annual meeting of the Medical Committee for Human Rights. They hold true today, even 59 years after first being spoken. In honor of Martin Luther King, the MLK lecture, MLK Health Equity Lecture was established, as Margaret said, in 2014 by the Office of Inclusive Excellence, then the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. This emphasized and highlighted the importance of examining the history of health and health disparities among our Larner community. Over the last 12 years, our lecture has covered a wide range of speakers on a variety of important topics, from Flint lead water crisis to the connection between racial segregation and obesity. This lecture is part of the Office of Inclusive Excellence's Healthcare and CARE, Cultural Awareness Research Education Series, and provides education about health-related concerns that affect a whole array of groups with a particular focus on populations that are underserved in the field of medicine. Through education and meaningful engagement, this series aims to empower communities, promote cultural humility among our healthcare professionals, and address systemic disparities in health access and quality. In today's society, where efforts related to inclusion are being called into question or even attacked as we speak, we at Larner recognize the importance of studying the history of medicine as it relates to systemic biases that have shaped medical practices and policies over time. We must look back before we can look forward. It's crucial for us to create a more just and equitable healthcare system for all. We must remember Dr. King's legacy that emphasizes the importance of improving the health and well-being of our local communities. The community health center movement was born in the 1960s civil rights movement, driven by leaders whose fearless dreams sparked numerous cultural changes. I'm sure for many of you, it's hard to imagine a world where hospitals generally in the United States were segregated. But that was the case until 1965. I was alive in 1965 when that was going on. But thanks to LBJ signing the Medicare Act, and thanks to the civil rights activists such as W. Montague Cobb, president of the National Medical Association, and Philip Lee of the National Academy of Social Insurance, the act required hospitals to desegregate in order to receive federal funding. Today in 2025, the medical profession has come a long way, but we still have so much work to be done. Our Larner College of Medicine has been and will continue to be a leader in promoting health equity and health access for all, and we lead through education. And along that line, let me just put in a plug for the fact that there is more opportunity to learn and get together in terms of the important issues of health care equity and justice. There's going to be a webinar entitled Medicare's Impact on Hospital Integration in the US 1963 through 1967, presented by Dr. Preston Reynolds of the University of Virginia School of Medicine. That's on February 12th, hosted by our Office of Inclusive Excellence. This webinar will take place from noon till 1, and the link will be available on the ODEI website, now the Inclusive Excellence website. So now, with that background, it's really my pleasure to turn things over to Dean Tando, who's going to introduce today's wonderful speaker. Please join me in welcoming back Dean Margaret Tando.
Thank you, DuPage, and yes, I'm back. I'm very, very excited about this lecture today. Like Dean Page has said, we've been doing this since 2014, and we've had incredible speakers. But I remember when we heard that Dr. Carten had accepted the job as our chief diversity officer, and Tiffany was like, she's got to do our MLK health equity lecture. She wasn't even here yet, and we're like, we want to hear from her. And so I'm very, very excited to introduce Dr. Carten. Dr. Carten is the Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the UVM Health Network. She has over 25 years of experience in the fields of strategic planning, diversity and inclusion, health equity, and change management. She's recognized for her success in creating transformational change through cross-cultural collaborative partnerships throughout and among domestic and international organizations, utilizing the theories and methodologies of positive psychology, appreciative inquiry, and community-based participatory research. She has held executive leadership positions in several organizations, including the Cleveland Clinic, where she helped create their Office of Diversity. She has served as the Vice Chancellor of Diversity and Inclusion and Assistant Professor, Department of Psychiatry at UMass Chan Medical School, and Chief Diversity Officer at UMass Memorial Healthcare System. Most recently, Dr. Carten served as the interim Senior Vice President, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Mass General Brigham Health System, where she led the 85,000 member workforce in the system's United Against Racism strategy. Dr. Carten's work has been valued and recognized for building relationships across institutional silos and inspiring others to unite through DEI work. One of her goals in her role at UVM Health Network is to work closely with UVM and the Larner College of Medicine to craft a common DEI vision and generate innovative ways to identify opportunities and thrive through diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Dr. Carten holds a PhD in organizational behavior from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, a master's degree in organization development and analysis, also from Case Western, and a bachelor's of science degree in communications from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Carla Carten.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for inviting me into this space. It is a privilege and an honor to be with you this evening. I want to start with reading to you the Land and Labor Acknowledgement for the University of Vermont Health Network. The UVM Health Network acknowledges we live and work in the Wabanaki, the historical and current homeland of the Abenaki peoples, and the Gayange, the historical and current homeland of the Mohawk peoples. We recognize the long history of genocide and land theft used to create what we now know as the state of Vermont and the state of New York as part of the United States of America. We commit to our shared role in land stewardship and seeking the voices and needs of Indigenous peoples. University of Health Network acknowledges the history of slavery and the rich contributions of African descent for more than 400 years. Boy, I get a little choked up. I'm going to read that line over. University of Vermont Health Network acknowledges the history of slavery and the rich contributions of African descendants for more than 400 years. We acknowledge the exploitation of labor for economic growth and our responsibility to address labor inequities that exist today. We carry our ancestors in us and are continually called to do better. This acknowledgement is one of many essential steps toward the commitment to create an inclusive environment of care for our staff and for our community. So again, thank you for joining me this evening. The title of my lecture is DEY. And the why not? Because I kept thinking, DEI, I know why, but we are really getting tangled into some knots, especially in our present moment. And I wanted to take this opportunity to have us experience together just a glimpse of what has happened in the past in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and equity, diversity, inclusion in healthcare. So some of the objectives for this lecture is to, one, have a shared understanding of what we mean by diversity, and how diversity, equity, and inclusion works in healthcare. Take a look at our American values and contrast it with DEI, and let's see if there are any linkages there. Have a historical glimpse of DEI in healthcare. Look at our current climate, the current climate that is taking us into some knots. And then start thinking through, like, what's our vision for moving forward? And can this work continue? And what will it need? What will we need to do in order for this work to move forward? Now, I'm not going to read that much in this lecture, but there are some things I need to read in order to keep myself centered and not kind of fly all over the place. And this is the significance of being in this moment, recognizing that we're coming together in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, who without his work and his endurance and the people that came after him, I probably would not be here, and many of us would not be here in this, sharing this space. So my letter to you is, we are here in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This moment gives us an opportunity to reflect on the many lessons we can learn from Dr. King's rich legacy of a nonviolent movement for equity and justice for all. One lesson, which is foundational to the creation of the UVM Health Network and the Larner College of Medicine, is that we are stronger working together with love, understanding, and love and understanding for one another. As we navigate the complexities of modern American life, let us hold on to the timeless values he championed, ensuring that our progress is guided by compassion, understanding, and unity. For many of us, this time of year presents challenges as much as it presents opportunities. As we journey through the darkest and coldest season, facing many unknowns nationally and locally, I continue to be inspired by Dr. King's words. But if I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. Stars symbolize hope, as those glimmers of light can help guide us through the unknown. As we come together this evening, let's remember that the journey towards equity is ongoing. We must continue to challenge injustice, support one another, and work together to create a brighter future. I think that is an intention that we can all share as we embrace and navigate through 2025. So I believe in a lot of audience participation. So this evening, I'm going to ask you a couple of times and pull out your phone. And because I've got a question for you. And I might need some help with the language of the following. First is the technology. So there are going to be, I lost count, but maybe 5 times that we're going to have an interactive experience. So when you're done with this one, keep your window open. Okay. Thank you, Olive. Okay, so when pondering the state of DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right now, what are you hopeful for? And this shall populate itself as a word cloud. So when pondering the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion right now, what are you hopeful for? And I think most of you know the way this works. Everybody puts in a word or two, and then it populates. And the bigger the word, the more there's a shared commonality of the word. So what I'm seeing consistently in the center is community. So what are we really hopeful for right now? Community, understanding, growth, change, coalition building, learning, bravery, amazing colleagues, coming together, Vermont, representation, strength, 2028. I'm just reading the data as it comes out on the screen. So those are some of the things that we are hopeful for. And throughout our time together this evening and throughout our work that we are all dedicated to, and from now until the end of time, I hope that you carry with you some of this hope. What are you hopeful for? Because we are in for some turbulent times, especially when we get to the state of DE&I right now. And I think it's going to be really important for us to stay uplifted in the memory of collectively tonight in this moment. These were the things that we said that we would like to ponder in terms of what we're hopeful for right now. Oh, Olive, I need your help. Things aren't working. Oh, okay. All right, so let's start with diversity. And let's just start with a common shared description or understanding of what diversity is. So diversity basically refers to any aspect that distinguishes one group and individuals from another, including different perspectives, work experiences, lifestyles, and cultures. And why this is important is it's important because if we're trying to understand how we can come together and build community and do some of those things we're hopeful for, we need to know where we connect with our similarities and where we can connect across our differences. So what I'm going to share with you now is, it's called the diversity wheel. And it was originally architectured. I can make up words because I have part of a sociology degree in there somewhere. So, but it was originally created by Marilyn Loden, I believe in the 1980s. And since that time, through her charitable giving of this knowledge and pulling back copyright protections, she has allowed DEI folks to really build upon this model. So this model starts with a sense of identity. And how many of you either have children or have been around newborns? All right, so the majority. Anyone who's been around a newborn baby knows that that child comes into this world and that child has a personality. They are not a blank slate. They come into this world and they have a personality. Over time, that personality gets shaped. It gets shaped by their lived experiences. And it gets shaped by how they react to the world and how the world reacts to them. A lot of times when we think of diversity, we think of the demographics of diversity, we think of the nifty 9, which are the ones you see on the screen right now, which are the primary facets of diversity. National origin, gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, economic class, mental and physical abilities, and gender expression. So those are usually the nifty 9. And those are the ones that when we ask for people to complete their demographic data, so this is a shameless shout out for you in your organizations, please, you and people that you're with, encourage them to fill out their demographic data, especially in our work systems. A lot of times people are hesitant. I have been hesitant myself in the past for fear that that information would be used against me. We need this information so we can see where gaps are and where opportunities are to live into the cultures that we are hoping for. Anyway, I'm done with my shameless plug, but the demographics is usually what we think of as the nifty 9. The next level, the secondary level, really looks at things that maybe we have a little bit more control over, but they're still parts of our identity and our identity at development. So where are you from? Your geography, your religion, your beliefs, parental status. Have you been around children? Your political affiliations. The next level starts getting more into like the organizational level. And then the level after this, which I'll show in a moment, is the cultural level. But the organizational level can show, you know, for the folks in this room, how many people are at Locum? How many people are with the UVM Health Network? Are you from Porter? Are you from, you know, what institution are you from? And what is your role? What is your management status? What is your tenure? These are the different dimensions that oftentimes when we think of diversity, if we're just thinking of the nifty 9, we're not taking into account the full array of all of the different dimensions that make us who we are and give us the ability for some of these things to shift and change over time. But I think the most important thing about this about this whole diversity wheel is it gives us an image of who we are, how we're shaped, and more importantly, and I'm going to go into a mini lecture, and I'm not going to stay in this space too long, but human behavior and how human behavior works. As humans with a really large frontal cortex, we are programmed to want to connect to people. We really are. So if I said that I am from Cleveland, Ohio, there is a part of your brain that's like, have I ever been to Cleveland? Do I know anybody from Ohio? Am I from there? Do I have relatives? The beauty is we are looking for connections. And this wheel gives us a pictorial of the different ways we can connect. That's the beauty of human behavior. The not so beautiful part of human behavior is we are very tribal. So as soon as we find our folks, ooh, how many people are from Cleveland, Ohio? Well, we can just become a Cleveland, Ohio clique, you know, and no one's better than us, you know, and no one knows Vermont better than all of us Cleveland, Ohioers. I mean, that's how the human brain works. And we have to actively work at building relationships across our differences so that we can stay nimble in how we can connect with each other. So what are the core goals, though, when we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion? What are some of the core goals when we're looking at this in the healthcare system? Again, when I ask people to please fill out their demographic data, it's so that when we are in the diversity demographic part of diversity, equity, inclusion in healthcare, we're using that data to really look at, are we equitable in our recruiting practices? Are we inclusive? Are we developing and promoting people on an equity and merit base? And is it applied equilaterally or equitably across our systems? In the equity space, providing equitable, fair, unbiased, high quality care for all of our patients. All of our patients. I think the biggest thing that breaks my heart in the diversity space is how many people don't see themselves in the diversity space. They think diversity, it looks and it walks and it moves like Carla. You know, I'm not white. I don't present as male. I must be the representation of diversity. I think one of the calls of action is every white, cisgender, rural man needs to be able to see himself in the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, because we are working for all of us. And in the inclusion piece, that's just another part, creating that healthcare environment of respect where people actually feel like they're seen and they're heard, their opinions and their voices matter, and their opinion and their voices are actually used to influence our systems. So, phone time. Why do we need to focus on DEI in healthcare? And this one isn't a word cloud. This is more of like a Post-it note kind of thing. So you can put in a word or a phrase. I will challenge myself to be quiet for a moment to give you an opportunity to think, but I will read the question one more time. Why do we need to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in healthcare? No, it should still be a, yeah, it's, okay. All right, no worries.
Yeah, so it should just be on
Oop.
the left slide that you use. Yeah, you can also join by going to menti.com and putting in the code that's up there.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Excuse me. I thought I could scroll down, but I don't think that I can. So anyway, so why do we need to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Some of the answers from your responses is maternal mortality, to give the best care possible, longer, healthier lifespans, create a compassionate culture. Our health as a planet depends on it. Improve health outcomes, justice with equal outcomes, take care of all of our population, again, better health outcomes, because healthcare is for everyone, to support our communities, to care for patients of all types. I really wish I could scroll down, but I can't. So just read to you some of the things that came up through your collective wisdom in the room. Now I'm going to juxtapose it with, I'm calling it, I think I like the word nifty. So the nifty 9, the top 9 things that come when you do a literature review concerning the need to focus on DEI in healthcare. And some of them are very similar. Improve patient outcomes, reduce health disparities, enhance innovation, provide culturally intelligent care, provide accessibility, such as language interpretation, to be patient-centered and provide patient-centered care, inclusive hiring practices, providing a healthy and inclusive workforce, and supporting career development, in particular for underrepresented groups. What did not come from the literature is that last little green rectangle, which is my question, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion part of our American values? So in answering this question, I leaned on my OD background, which in the following way. If I were to go into an organization and assess their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, I would start by looking at what is your mission? What are your visions? What is your values? So I decided to do this on a macro scale and look at what are our American vision, values, and I said it out of order, but the vision, the mission, and the values. So another opportunity for me to read to you. I'm going to read to you the core founding documents that are called upon as America's vision, mission, and values. I encourage you to listen as if you're hearing these for the first time. And I invite you to look for the depth of the meaning. Preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Preamble of the United States Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Americans' Creed. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. So I have another question for you. What themes stand out for you as our core American principles and values? So consistently, I'm seeing equality, justice, inclusivity, connection, liberty, freedom, perseverance, equal opportunity, listening, the people, acceptance, respect, compassion, boy, this is really temperamental. I'm trying all the different tricks to change the page. Hold on. Got it. So those were some of America's founding documents. Now I want to take a look at some of our icons, some of the things that when you see this, you know that you're looking at some brilliant icon of America. The Statue of Liberty, the Liberty Bell, and our United States Capitol. So the Liberty Bell was originally ordered for the Pennsylvania State House in 1752. The bell's inscription is a Bible verse from Leviticus 25:10. Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. In the early 19th century, anti-slavery groups adopted the bell as a symbol of their cause and named it Liberty Bell. After the Civil War, the bell was sent on tour across the whole entire nation with the purpose of uniting the country. And the bell has been a centerpiece of many political movements, including women's suffrage and civil rights. Our US Capitol, the symbol of democracy. I have a question for you. What is that on the top? It's a 19.5-foot statue. So here's my question for you. And this one's more like a poll. Yes, indeed. What stands on top of our nation's capital? Is it Paul Revere, an American Indian warrior, the Statue of Freedom, or Benjamin Franklin? So it looks like we've got a race between an American Indian warrior and the Statue of Freedom. And the answer is the Statue of Freedom. The Statue of Freedom is significantly linked to the Civil War because it was installed during the conflict, serving as a powerful symbol of the Union's commitment to the ideal of freedom, especially during a time when the nation was deeply divided over slavery. Its placement on the Capitol Dome during the war was seen as a statement about the fight for liberty and the preservation of the Union. The literature also says that the statue is actually supposed to embody 3 different figures. 3 figures, and you can go to the literature because this would not be my phrasing of any of this, but the nation produced 3 new categories of people: the African American, the American Indian, and the white woman. The statue was supposed to symbolize born into freedom, but some of the Southern senators were very upset by this, and they opposed the notion of a lot of the freedom symbols, thus creating kind of a hodgepodge. This is why you see feathers and robes and all kinds of things. Because even way back then, 1863, there couldn't be a shared expression of how do we want to symbolize freedom. We know that we want to represent the land of which we are here, the Native American land. We know that we are in a civil war, and a lot of that, the basis of that civil war is the abolition of slavery. And the thought at the time was, in order for the nation to grow, we would need the hearts, bodies, and minds of white women. This is a very complicated statute. I mean, I could take you on a whole lecture, especially today, because the main premise of the statue that's 19.5 feet tall and stands on top of our nation's capital is born into freedom. The notion that anybody who is born in America is an American citizen and subject to the laws of America. And even in 1863, that was a controversy. Our Statue of Liberty. All right, you think you all are off the hook? Not quite. Not quite. What was the Statue of Liberty's original symbolic purpose? To celebrate the emancipation of enslaved peoples, to be a beacon of hope for immigrants, or a monument of independence from England? So the Statue of Liberty was originally conceived to be part of the in part, to celebrate the emancipation of enslaved peoples. Yeah. For many around the world, the advancement of freedom is the monument's most important symbolism. Give you some close-up looks. I think most of you know the Statue of Liberty. She's got her right hand raised a torch for a beacon of light and a beacon of hope. In her left hand, she carries a tablet that's inscribed with the US Declaration of Independence and the date, July 4th, 1776. With her left foot, she steps on a broken chain and shackle, commemorating the national abolition of slavery following the Civil War. After its dedication, the statue became an icon of freedom of the United States, being subsequently seen as a symbol to welcome immigrants arriving by sea. So if we looked at the documents and the icons, and we really settled into what are America's ideals as spoken in the vision and the mission and the values, and we look at the ideals of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I say the American creed kind of pretty much sums it up, that our ideals and core values are liberty, freedom, equality, justice, humanity, the pursuit of happiness, and that all men, mankind, are created equal. And these are basically the strategies and principles and the practices that support diversity, equity, and inclusion. Although I wish we could have a long, deep, rich conversation of the first part of this lecture, I do want to take this moment for us to get a little bit of the history of diversity, equity, and inclusion in healthcare. First off, we know that America has always had a struggle living up to its ideals and marrying it with its actions. This country has a history of justifying medical experimentation and abuse on Black bodies, denying access to care and the ability to manage one's own health care through segregation, including Jim Crow, internment camps, Indian reservations, ghettos and towns such as Chinatown, Little Italy, and many ethnic enclaves designed to separate and restrict access to resources, including medical resources. We know that many resources have been poured into trying to prove biological differences and inferiorities of non-white peoples and non-male bodies. We also know that normal in medicine has been based on the male body affecting medical treatments and pharmacology. These practices have built and sustained the foundation for structural racism in healthcare. So I'm going to take a very brief journey on DEI in healthcare. In 1765, we had the first medical school in Pennsylvania. It wasn't until 100 years later that minorities were allowed to enter those institutions. 31 years later, the Supreme Court, through Plessy versus Ferguson, legitimize racial segregation and sanction that institutions need to be based on race and there be no crossing. However, it wasn't specific in the Plessy versus Ferguson that as a Black person, I would have to go to a Black institution. As a white person couldn't go into a Black institution unless there was just no availability to get into the white institution. There was one small clause in there somewhere that allowed for Black physicians to practice in white medical facilities until 1910, when the Flexner report on medical education, in a very interesting way, said, you know what, our for-profit medical schools are turning out too many physicians. Actually, they're turning out too many underqualified or unqualified physicians. Just so happens that those unqualified physicians are your physicians of color and particularly Black people. So they will no longer be able to practice in any healthcare institution unless it is of their own race. You know, there is so much into the history of exclusion. And I know I gave it short shrift, but I do want to go into some of the progress that has been made, especially if we look through the lens of equity. So starting in the mid-1900s, America really started realizing that there were healthcare disparities, especially in rural healthcare. And today, this is still a primary focus, or still a heightened focus, let me put it that way. There was also awareness that people in the LGBTQ community face significant healthcare disparities. It wasn't until 1973 when the American Psychiatric Association voted to remove homosexuality from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, that the nation started to embrace the health and care of members of the LGBTQ community. Then in 1980, HIV/AIDS epidemic. And you know, there's things that happen in the background in our culture and things that happen in the foreground. And there's sometimes these significant moments of all the folks who've been trying to do work in the background who have really not made the progress they want. Something happens and all of a sudden there's a new awareness. And when the AIDS epidemic started to show, one, that it wasn't restricted to one community, and two, within certain communities, there was great disparity for trans women and for transgender women and for Black and Latino gay men, that people started to really realize this is something that not only do we need to address, but we need to conduct further studies that can empower us to provide better health across our populations, but specifically for the LGBTQ population. There's just so much I want to say. There's just so many points, so many deep mini lectures that we could have. But I want to stay on course in terms of the progress. But I do want to share the story of Margaret Heckler. Margaret Heckler was a white woman congressperson from Massachusetts who served between 1967 and 1983. And Margaret was a huge influencer. She voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1968. In 1972, she co-sponsored Title IX, which required that no person on the basis of sex could be discriminated against under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. In 1973, she authored the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, giving women the ability to have credit in their own name. It totally blows my mind that my mother in 1974 couldn't have credit and couldn't have a credit card in her own name. It either had to be in my dad's or in her father's. Heckler was very outspoken, and she was one of the co-sponsors and activists for the Equal Rights Amendment. And I don't know why it's so important for me to channel her, but I think in today's political climate, it's just fascinating and empowering and just wonderful to behold that there was a white woman Republican who took it upon herself to make significant change and impact that we are all benefiting from today. One of the things she did is after she left Congress, she became the Secretary of the Health and Human Services. And in that space, she commissioned a study on health disparities. That health disparity report ended up being the Heckler report, which showed for the first time concretely the disparities in health outcomes and the rates of death for Black and non-white people. A couple years later, the Department of Health and Human Services launched the Office of Minority Health. So through the 1980s, we started focusing, and you saw the other timeline, but we started really focusing and having language and having scholarship around health inequity and health disparity. This went to all kinds of other studies that really started looking at equal treatment. A lot of you in this room have probably really been involved in the research that has taken us to where we are today. So as these things are happening in the 80s and in the 90s, there are also social justice movements that are taking place. There was the environmental justice that turned into the justice movement of the 80s. There was the Me Too movement. There was Black Lives Matter movement. Actually, there's a typo. Black Lives Matter movement started in 2013, but it really came into America's focus in 2020. So we've got all this progress that we're making, but some people are making it, and some people are aware of it. And then what happens? Then 2020 happens, and we have COVID. And what happens during COVID is, for the first time in generations, we've got so many people at home getting the same news feeds, looking at the same programs on television. Many of us are still out working, especially those in healthcare, but so many of us are at home. And for the first time, we could see the 1968 segregation heat maps that all major cities in our country had. So, in case I am not being clear, throughout the 60s and in 1968, there were intentional policies and practices put in place to segregate America's cities. At the same time, there were people trying to dismantle it, but it was really concretized by 1968. When we started getting the heat maps from who is dying at the fastest rates, who doesn't have access to care, those heat maps pretty much mirrored perfectly those redlining maps. So for the first time, a lot of the people that were working for health equity, they had a national platform because they could say, see what happens if we're not focusing on this? We've got people dying. So we need to pay attention to this. A couple months later, what happens? Another big event, the murder of George Floyd. I will never forget this event. I don't think many of us will. But I will never forget it because I was at home. Many of you know I've got 2 children. One was away at college, one was at home with me. His name is Daniel. He's on the autism spectrum, and he was home with me. I was working remote and just needed to take a break. Daniel and I went and sat in front of the television just to see what was on TV. I saw the murder of a Black man on my television set and remembered the feeling of, well, obviously there's going to be an intervention because they would not show a video of somebody just dying. We saw a video of somebody dying. The whole nation and the whole world saw a video of somebody dying. And it wasn't just somebody. It was a person living in a Black body who could show and demonstrate a whole history. And I don't mean way back when history, but a lot of organizations took time out to speak his name, but speak the name of the 462 other people who already by 2020 had been murdered in unjust ways very similar to George Floyd. So on our journey, as my little one says, then what happened? Well, then what happened is, especially in healthcare, especially the workers that were still coming in day and out and caring for the people who were sick and then going home to different communities, they said, we've had enough of this. We need to take some kind of action. Most healthcare organizations are the anchor institutions within their communities, meaning they're the largest employer. If they're not the largest employer, they are the caregiving source for their organizations. So a lot of caregivers were saying, this is just too much. COVID, injustice, heat maps that marry each other. We need to have some kind of action against this. We need to stand up for something. We need to stand against something. The healthcare system I was in decided to take a look, and that was Mass General Brigham Health System. A whole bunch of people that never had really worked together. So you've got, community activists who are like, yes, we finally have our space. We've got diversity management, which is let's do things more slowly, incremental, let's build trust, let's build hope, let's build space. And we had healthcare workers saying, you know what, we need to get all of these energies together and we need to be strategic in what is it we want to do. I tell you what we want to do. We want to eliminate racism in our healthcare institutions. We want to drive out racialized medicine. If I go to the doctor and somebody, same height, same weight, same educational background, from Cleveland, Ohio, same everything, but the race is different, we get different diagnosis, we get different treatment. That has got to end. So being very strategic and looking at how do we look at our leadership, employees, and culture, patient care, community health, and how do we commit to different kinds of work streams so we can stay focused? Because you all know if we try to boil the ocean, we're not going to get anywhere. What happened, and this wasn't just at Mass General Brigham, this was here, this was everywhere. There was a whole new philosophy around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You had different people in different industries standing up, new offices of diversity. You had people put into diversity leadership positions. 2021, 2022, for the first time, we could actually show the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organizations. There was behavior change. Just remember this. This is my reality anyway. So I'm asking you to remember my reality, but maybe it's a shared reality. 2019, most people couldn't just walk around the room and say, racism, structural racism. Heck, I still had friends that I was coaching and supporting with being able to say, Black person out loud for fear of, am I saying the wrong thing? I don't know if that's right. Behavior change. There are all kinds of lectures on structural racism, all kinds of training courses. Behavior was changing. People were saying, what does inclusive excellence look like? It looks like you bring an idea, he will listen to it, and we might change something. So power was being changed through the exchange of ideas. Was it perfect? No. Is it going to be a long road to what's that phrase, to hoe? I want to make sure I don't say the wrong word. But anyway, it's going to be a long journey. But things were happening. And before, because I'm about to jump ahead of myself. So, because I know it's later in the evening too, so pull the phones back out again. And here's a poll for you. Who benefits most from diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Black people, the LGBTQ community, white women, or white men? If we look to scholarly journals that actually do the assessments of organizations and organizational, who's being brought into organizations, who's being developed, promoted, retention rate, and turnover rates shrinking, the biggest beneficiary is white women. Yeah, the biggest beneficiary is white women. I kind of think if we take a macro look, I think one of the biggest beneficiaries are white men. The men who are the chairmen of the boards of the organizations who have been flourishing, the men who own the corporations, including the legacy of Sam Walmart, who through their changing of DEI policies, practices of bringing people in that are marrying for hire, that are really representing the communities they serve, and through commercialism. Go back again, 2019, how many interracial couples did you really see on television in a commercial? How many do you see now? Yeah. And you're going to continue to see that because organizations are profiting from that. They know half my professional career in the DEI space was making the business case for, that case doesn't need to be, it does now, thank you. But anyway, but to our major corporations, that's not part of the equation anymore. It's really gone more into impact and not just constantly justifying why we need to do this. So where are we today? Whew. We are in the midst of folks with strategy and intention really trying to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion. So cascading from the Supreme Court's 2023 decision to overturn affirmative action in college admissions, in 2023 alone, there were 256 bills that were introduced in states attacking DE&I, and 157 bills explicitly attacking DEI in education across 34 states. In 32 of those states, 215 college campuses have made changes to their DEI policies. Currently, 20 states have at least one law that restricts or bans DEI practices in different government settings. Notice Vermont is one of the few that does not have these restrictions. In 2024, so just this past year, many corporations have rolled back their DEI initiatives, Walmart being one of them. Although if you peel back that onion, they're like, yeah, we're rolling these back, but we're gonna keep that profit going, keep the things that are working for us. So it's kind of like doublespeak if you really go and really look at what Walmart is saying. But Meta has rolled back, American Airlines, a whole lot of them have rolled back. And in this current state, in the White House, President Trump has selected Stephen Miller as his Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Since 2021, Miller has served as the president of America First Legal Foundation, which has filed numerous challenges to corporate DEI programs. You know, the world is moving so quickly that what I had originally put in to share with you, I can just jump to what has happened day before yesterday. So President Trump signed executive orders, quote, ending racial and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. Quote, defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. This is just explicitly attacking the trans community and the LGBTQ community. Protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship, thus repealing that whole notion of why that statue was on top of our symbol of democracy, born free if you're born on this soil, trying to roll that back. Now, according to a report by the Heritage Foundation, and the Heritage Foundation is a very conservative think tank that is really one of those think tanks that is actively trying to disseminate diversity, equity, and inclusion. Their latest report says that of the 500 largest US companies, 485 of them still maintain DEI programs and initiatives. So I hear that from a positive lens. They're hearing that in a negative lens. But I'm still kind of heartened that yes, we've got 485 of our largest organizations that are still in some way, shape, or form committed to DE&I. Why are we tied up in this knot? I think we're tied up in this knot because we were making progress that we didn't want, some people didn't want to have made. When you look at that notion of white women benefiting more, look around and look at Congress, 1967, 1983, Margaret Heckler, one of 11. Look at Congress now. Look at the leaders in our political systems, in our organizations, on our college campuses. Take the equity out, and there goes the representation of women, along with all of the other facets of diversity. We're also tied in knots, no surprise, because of great disinformation that DEI disadvantages white workers. There's also the avoidance of our racial history, the banning of books, banning of AP classes. If we don't recognize our history, maybe we can just like gloss over it and not worry about it. Doesn't work. We tried that for 400 years. We just keep tripping over the same things that are buried. And the fear of the power shift. So those are some of the reasons I think we're in knots. So one of my questions is, we were making a lot of progress. We are fortunate in this room because if you're in the health network, or if you're with the Larner College of Medicine, these are organizations that said, no matter what the political wind is, we are still committed to our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. But where do we go from here when we know of all the political headwinds that are right in our face right now? One of the things I think we need to do is stay firm in the work that we're doing. Stay strategic, stay focused, find ways of supporting each other. So when the burden starts to feel really heavy, we've got ways of staying focused and making progress. Some of the things I think we need to do, I think that we need all leaders to really help drive this work. We need to amplify DE&I and make sure that people understand it's fundamental to our American ideals and values. We need to actively make true that DEI includes everyone. Again, cisgendered white men, rural white men, everybody is represented in the work we do in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We need to understand that this is a journey. It's not just something that's we all know this, I'm preaching to the choir now, but it's not checking the box. It's really a commitment, a long-term commitment. And we need each other. We need each other to make personal commitments to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we need to engage in the conversations. Larner College of Medicine has engaged in the conversations. Is a rose by any other name? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. How does it live? How does it breathe? How do we name it? Because people are coming after us just because of names. I'm almost finished. You've been listening to me for quite a while. But I am really moved because, if somebody asked me, what am I hopeful for? What am I willing to do? I need to be able to answer those in my head, my heart, my feet, my hands. And so I'm asking you this. When you see the work that we're doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, where do you see yourself? And how do you see yourself moving this work forward? Last week, I had the fortune of being invited to help facilitate one of the DEI monthly listening circles at the UVM Health Network, specifically through UVMMC. Dr. Marissa Coleman, who's here with us tonight, shared a framework of activism that was new to me, but I thought I would share it with you. And basically, it's through the lens of activism, maybe we can find our purpose in this work. And you can see for yourself, if you were to contribute to this work, would you be a helper, an advocate, an organizer, or a rebel? And in short, a helper provides services and skills designed to help those without privilege have increased decision-making power. Advocates engage in the legal methods of social change. They build coalitions, and they assess how these justice demands can come into fruition. Organizers strategically focus on long-term demands for justice and use grassroots strategies, leadership development, consensus building, and coalition building to develop specific routes to get us to where we need to go. And rebels use protests and street activism as vehicles for social justice and change. All of these are not within the context of the organizations that we're speaking of per se. But look at where we are right now in this DEI knot. Look at the folks that are strategically coming after the work that we're doing. Where do we need to relate and connect with others? And how can we be helpers, advocates, organizers, and perhaps at time rebels? So in closing, and this is in closing, and I'm asking one more time for you to pull out your phones. Boy, the print is really small. But what I'm asking you to do is dream big, act bold, and take DEI action. So again, kind of coming from that framework of what are you hopeful for? What actions are you committed? What actions are you committed to keep the work of DEI alive? What is your dream for this work and how it can be lifted up? Beloved community, keep showing up. Inclusive engagement, stay open and listen. Engagement of community in the conduct of healthcare research, connection and education. Be a rebel to help people that need it most. A future America that is what it could have been. Strengthen local connections. I'll let that stay up for a while. And this is another thing I'm gonna ask, and that is whatever you wrote, if you can go on your phone and screenshot it, just to remind yourself of in this moment, your thoughts around what can I do? What am I hopeful for? How can we move this work forward? And with that, I conclude my lecture. Thank you. you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Carten. That was just, I really appreciate the history, the connection, and I think the one thing that really spoke to me is like DEI benefits all of us, and I think we need to continue to do the work no matter what it's called or what the name is, but we know the work is important. I know every one of us here and online know this work is important. That's why we're here. That's why we do it. And I think we need to continue. I think one of my things, my thing didn't show up. I said, we should not let fear stop us. I think we have to continue this work because it's too important for us to not do it. We have about 10 minutes for questions, so I'll open it up. Or comments.
Thank you.
Monitoring it online too, right? Different.
Yes. Wow.
I think a lot of times.
Thank you.
Here when you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you don't mind just raising your hands, and I can bring the mic around so our folks on Zoom can hear.
Okay, thank you, Carla. So I have the privilege and benefit of being able to work directly with Carla. And one of the things that always strikes me about learning from you is how you bring your whole heart into the content and the material that you teach us. And so I'm wondering if you could share a bit about how you have throughout your career resisted the immobilization that can come from fear.
Mm,
And I'd love to hear how you have navigated that.
yeah. It's an excellent question, especially right now, because I've been having my own internal dialogue of admitting to myself, I'm scared. And that's something that I don't admit that often because I don't feel that I have the privilege of sharing that. But I'm scared. And I think by the question and my being able to say that out loud, there's some self-care in that, but there's also a reality. Because if I say I'm scared, then I can say, well, why am I scared? And then I can say, well, who's making you scared? And if I say, who's making you scared? That person doesn't have power over me. So part of my ego can come into this in terms of, I am not going to live in fear because I choose not to live in fear. I'm not going to assign that to one person either. You know, our president is one man. There are many people that are trying to dismantle our work. And I choose not to be afraid. But I have to continuously say that to myself. And this might sound hokey to some of you, but really, I go and I have, this is how my mother, who I hope is watching, told me how I should do this whole lecture. Because she's like, you need to have a conversation with Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, your struggles are here and your fear is here. His fear was probably way up here. How did he live through this? So I actually try and meditate, but I also try to channel people and go to ancestries. You know, we've got a whole ancestry. I have an ancestry of resilience, both Native American, African American, and Irish American. Resilience. Thank you.
All right, well, there's a lot of work to do. And,
There's a lot of
and I know we are empowered and we're engaged, and I really like that continuum of how you're gonna work. Are you a helper or you an advocate? Are you a rebel? Some of us, like me, too chicken to be a rebel, but definitely there are other things there that I can that I can definitely do. So I want to thank Dr. Carten again
Thank you.
for being our
Thank you.
speaker. So we're glad. I also like to thank all of you that tune in online and are here in person to engage in this work and continue to engage in taking care of all our patients and eradicating health disparities. I especially like to thank my office staff, Olive and Tiffany and Eileen and Ann, and just really helping put this together. Olive, thank you for all the work, Tiffany, for everything that we do here. And I would like for everybody to have a great evening. Try to stay up with the social media as much as you can, so you can have some kind of center and some kind of mindfulness. But otherwise, have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much. That was great. Just tying everything. I really like that.